Hello and welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses. We are live, it's Tuesday evening, and the fun continues as the Dons continue their winning run under Jimmy Tilleen. Saturday looked to be a frustrating day, and that's not just trying to get Oasis tickets as the wait for the Dons to score went on into stoppage time, but thankfully that winner did come. Myself and Phil will look back at all the action from that dramatic game in Dingwall and also assess the transfer window as the Dons didn't do any deadline day business and see where we feel the squad is now being left between now and, of course, the January transfer window. As we're live, we've got our roving reporter Sam Gordon out at Balmoral as a Dons 11 take part in a game against Cove Rangers for Blair Ewell's testimonial, and we'll kind of discuss some of the squad involvement in that game as well, as there looks to be quite a lot of first teamers involved. Phil, though, good to see you again. Busy day for you, just in the door.
Yep.
How did you enjoy the game at the weekend?
Yeah, it was a bit of a good end in that one. Like you say, it was a little bit nervy throughout. Fair few talking points. Sadly, once again, not really from the playing perspective, and more from the man in the middle. But yeah, the bandwagon rolls on, as I believe Michael Stewart said, on Premier Sports. So we go again. Trebles on.
Honestly, I've never seen a referee incapable of drawing an imaginary square as Ewan Anderson, and how many times he had to then do it the weekend as well. Esther Sokler retained his place in the starting lineup as the Dons went for an unchanged 11. And I think, as Andy Skinner said on the last show, Ross County proudly hosting unbeaten record at home since February. Obviously, Motherwell were the last team to win up in Dingwall until we did at the weekend. I guess in those early stages of the game, I know you were watching at home, but you could see kind of why Ross County had that impressive record, because they kind of set their stalls out to be a bit stuffy. I thought Topi Keskinen was probably our biggest bright spark in that first half.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was the sort of same as we saw under Don Cowie when he came in on an interim basis last season with County. Sort of very low block, kind of hard to break down. And I think we did struggle with that a little bit in the first half, especially obviously with a enforced change of McGrath as well. So, but I don't think that was really any shock to anybody. County are, despite shipping 6 to Rangers, they typically are quite a tough team to break down, especially in Dingwall. So, So yeah, it was again just good to see us kind of sticking with that style of play, not panicking too much when it was looking a bit tough.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we weren't really kind of generating any clear-cut opportunities, but again, we kind of just stuck to our own game plan, and we didn't, drag ourselves down to Ross County's level. And I think what impressed me about Ross County, and I think people will maybe argue differently, was I thought they got their tactics spot on in the sense that they set their stall out to frustrate Aberdeen. They set their stall out to kind of attack us on the counter attack, but they were really niggly and almost kind of clever about doing it, leaving the foot in here and there. We'll speak about one tackle in particular, and I think it would have been late in the first half
Yeah,
that sticks out. But yeah, I thought they were quite kind of clever the way Don Cowie had them, but thankfully for us, we managed to find a way.
yeah. I think it's always the danger with sort of games like this where we could have quite easily been dragged in to that sort of brand of football. I think this is the difference under Jimmy, is that we are a lot calmer, we are a lot more patient in games like this where we maybe would get sort of dragged into hoofball back and forth, a couple of bad challenges in the middle, and sort of losing out in the sort of mental side of the game. And we seem to be a lot more solid in that sense, which was really quite pleasing to see that we did kind of stick with it and play our brand of football.
Yeah, and I thought in the kind of first half hour or so that we looked good when we got into that final third. Unlike kind of previous games, we were actually, looking to flash the ball across the face of goal or taking on the shot. It was just unfortunate we never had somebody in the right area. But we were showing a bit more intent than personally I felt we'd showed against Kilmarnock at times. But the biggest kind of loss, I guess, in that first half was Jamie McGrath, because I just hope he's all right and isn't going to be out for a significant period of time, because that was two absolute golf balls he had on the side of his head that I saw looking back on Sports Scene. So hopefully, kind of a blessing that the Irish squad haven't called him up. I'm a bit disbelief at that, and first and foremost, but probably a blessing for us. He's not got any international football to go away with, and can recover ahead of that game against Motherwell when we come back to club football.
Yeah, I think, losing out on his creativity, and just his quality in general as a player was evident. We're already down, Clarkson and Polvara, two quite creative midfielders. So to also be down McGrath, I think it did kind of show a little bit. I thought, we were still able to create chances here and there, like you say, through Keskinen, through the sort of overlap from Devlin and McKenzie. But it was noticeable going into half time. We were definitely down the sort of creative outlet for the team.
Yeah, that's what Adam Heddle says there. Thought we lacked real creativity once McGrath went off, and I totally agree. And to be honest, I think right up until half time, we did lack any sort of creativity. That two strikers on the pitch, I don't think Esther or Kevin kind of knew where they should be playing. Pape didn't really look suited to being out on the left wing. Everything just looked clunky. And certainly between Jamie going off in half time, that was when in my mind I was like, we're going to regret not signing a winger or someone with that bit more creativity. Or that was when oh damn it, we're really missing Leighton Clarkson here kind of kicked in. But Jimmy was positive at half time and brought on Vinny and went back to just putting one striker up top, and that did make a difference as well. But yeah, there was a slight bit of concern for me, the lack of creativity in that period from Jamie going off to half time, about how that could affect us between now and January.
Yeah, and I think it's a concern that might come up again in the season, depending on injuries, because there is no two ways about it that missing players like Clarkson, missing players like McGrath, it is going to have an impact on us, because there are big part players on our part. But like you said, I think the changes were positive in terms of bringing on Vinny, and then obviously bringing on Morris later, who we'll come to speak about in the lead up to the goal. But the one, I think, main thing was just the sort of solid foundation we had at the back. I think that was the main thing, that despite losing the creativity, it still kind of gave us that real foothold and domination in the game, really.
Well, you say we had a solid foundation at the back. It leads into, I guess, the first goal, in inverted commas, that obviously gets disallowed, and VAR dominated the game. That's why it dominates the title of the episode today. Ruby, I thought at the game, got caught out by the ball over the top. I assumed it was probably a well-timed run. Probably the only time Ruby's been caught out so far this season in that sense, with a ball over the top. My frustration from the goal, if you want to call it that, was that Gavin Malloy didn't just boot it into the stand. He insisted on trying to clear it back into the danger zone, not knowing who was behind him. And I think it was Nisbett the ball fell to, who had the shot. And then Gavin does get unlucky with the way he tries to clear it, and it hits off Ronan Hale and bundles into the net. It felt very much kamikaze pinball type football. But for me, frustration that he didn't just kind of take that no-nonsense approach and just accept the corner, and then we'll kind of regroup, reset, and deal with that set of danger. Thankfully, though, VAR and the dodgy drawing of lines saved us, because, I think the standard of technology Scottish football has really kind of came to the fore in this game.
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest day for Scotland's budget refereeing equipment, shall we say? But no, yeah, much like you, I think it's maybe part of what's so good about Gavin, and also a part that maybe will sort of peer out again. I think he's a really positive centre half. And I think that's also why Jimmy likes him. He's always looking to try and keep the ball moving forward and try and sort of at least create something. He's brilliant at playing his diagonals. He's great at playing through the lines in the midfield as well. I think it was one of those things where I think he's probably just tried to find an out ball in a sort of moment of madness where probably shouldn't have tried to find an out ball. And yeah, like you say, what sort of angle VAR was trying to conduct itself at there, I've got no idea. I don't know if the construction of County Stadium kind of makes the cameras be in awkward positions or what, but yeah, it was a little bit questionable. But
Hey,
we'll take them.
we shouldn't be complaining too much. It benefited us. So,
Exactly.
one moment though from that first half though that I'm stunned VAR didn't get involved in. And again, having only seen it once in live, because it's certainly Sports Scene didn't show it back, and I don't know how many times you got to see it back watching on TV, was the Ronan Hale challenge on Gavin Malloy himself. For me, that felt more of a red card than we saw for Brad Lyons the week previously at Pataudry. And I actually felt Ewan Anderson had gone to his top pocket, and I'm pretty sure he had gone to his top pocket and bottled it. He took a second, and I personally felt he was waiting for VAR to tell him by issuing that yellow card, giving him the opportunity, or certainly those stuck in a van somewhere to analyse it and then tell him, right, come over, because God knows he needs plenty of opportunities to draw that imaginary square to try and get it right eventually. But like I said, I don't know about yourself watching that challenge. Did you feel there was a red card there, or was the yellow card right?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one. It was on that fine line for me. I think
This
seeing it,
orange card getting
yeah, the
branded out
orange
again.
card once more. But no, it's one of those ones we're seeing it in real time. It looked pretty bad. It seemed like he came in quite quick and quite high. And like you say, it felt like an eternity it took for Anderson to make his decision. And, I was the same as you watching it thinking, oh, he's standing there. You could kind of see the red card on the back of the book. You're thinking, oh, that's what's coming out here. And like you say, I think he was probably waiting for someone to try and give him a little bit of help. And obviously it never came for him. But looking at it back, I think he does try to pull out of it ever so slightly, and I think that's maybe what makes it look worse, is the fact that he does try and sort of, at least for me, try and sort of pull his foot out of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess if the red card was shown first, it's hard to then downgrade it to a yellow. I guess, like, again, we saw last week against Kilmarnock, but yeah, I do feel he very much bottled that decision. Thankfully, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't come back to haunt us, but it was kind of prominent in my mind in the second half when, of course, Ross County get that penalty award as well. And I was thinking, well, this is going to be very controversial if obviously it materialized in different circumstances to what actually happened.
Yeah, like I say, I think it is one of those ones where if it had been a red, you wouldn't be too, as a County fan, you probably wouldn't be too aggrieved by it. You'd probably say, okay, I can understand why in a way. But yeah, at the same time, like I say, I think I don't know what was up with Ewan Anderson. I don't know if he was
lost.
Yeah, it was one of those ones where I don't want to say lost control of the game, because it didn't just descend into absolute chaos. But at the same time, you just felt like nobody knew what was going on. The dugouts didn't know what was going on. The players, the amount of time Shinnie went up just looking in complete sort of perplexion at what was going on, because I just don't think he was explaining any of his reasons for his decisions. It was just, I don't know, he just seemed to just lose it a little bit.
And of course, it's not the first time he's been involved in contentious decisions up in Dingwall. Of course, he was the man in charge of the game when Graham Shinnie got sent off there. a few seasons back, albeit, again, that was a VAR decision. But again, compare and contrast what Shinnie got sent off for to what Ronan Hale got booked for. Consistency. But we've learnt to appreciate Scottish football, and refereeing do not consistently meet the same level. As I said, half-time 0-0. I was probably kind of glad to get in at half-time 0-0 because, again, I thought Ross County began to grow into the game that last 15 minutes once Jamie McGrath went off. Ronan Hale flashing a free kick just past the post after Jack McKenzie abruptly stopped the attack. I think it was very much under taking one for the team, that tackle from Jack. But I thought it was a good opportunity for us to get in, regroup, and then we saw Jimmy Tilleen making a positive attacking change in bringing Vinny Bizowen on for Esther Sokler. I'm not criticising Esther in that sense. I think it was just a change of formation and allowing us back to utilise two out-and-out wingers, with Topi going back onto what would have been our right and Papi going back in behind Kevin Nisbett for the time being, kind of almost going back to what we've known and worked well so far under Jimmy.
Yeah, and I think it definitely helped. Like you say, I think having Sokler, Nisbett and Gay all sort of concentrated in the middle, it did make us a bit too narrow. And I think, when we went back to that sort of natural width that we had at the start of the game, it really did help us open up County a little bit more on the attack. So, like I said, I think Vinny was the right change from Jimmy. And it was really positive when he came on, tried to take on his man at every opportunity, a couple of good out balls as well, to get the counter flowing. So, once again, Jimmy's he's proven positive with subs so far, which is a pleasant change to times gone by. So long may it continue.
Yeah, and that's a point picked up by Adam Heddle, who says, I love the positive subs from Jimmy. No defensive subs, only attacking subs to go for the win. And you can't fault that desire. We saw it already at the Queen's Park game as well. But on Vinny especially, I thought that was probably one of kind of his shining performances so far. We've seen glimpses of it in the appearances he's had for the Dons so far. But I was really impressed by his directness, almost, a few inches away from putting himself in for goal this season as well. And we kind of spoke about, I think it was after the Queen's Park game, where maybe defensively, certainly after East Kilbride, the defensive aspect, we wanted to see him work on, kind of that attitude when he loses the ball. But I thought on Saturday, if he did lose the ball, his head didn't drop. He got back in, he fought to try and win it back. And he kept that positive attitude up, which was excellent to see.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, again, like we spoke about, players with a point to prove are, players that are worth sticking by. And he's kind of showcased that, especially against County. And I'm hoping, this is the start of seeing the best of him. Because, like I say, outside of maybe when he first came into the team after moving to the Dons, that was probably his best performance. Everything about it, like you say, the defensive aspect, how quick he was willing to try and get the ball into the box, albeit, sometimes it didn't come off. But, just how positive and direct he was in his play. I think really did get County's backs up a little bit, especially at a time where they were kind of growing into the game ever so slightly.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of an interesting point because they were growing into the game with us having two strikers, and we changed it. And again, that kind of positive, we seem to be starting second halves very much on the front foot, going to try and attack teams where possible. I just want to go back to the change itself, though, as we saw Esther Sokler come off for Vinny. David McLennan asks, are Esther and Kevin too alike to be able to play together? How long before Kevin is the first choice? And I wonder, with Kevin going on to get that match winner, is he now at the forefront of Jimmy's mind when we come back to play Motherwell? I noticed both of them actually are starting on the bench tonight against Cove Rangers. Yeah,
it's a tough one because, there may be scenarios where they would work as a two, but I think for the most part, like David says, they're a bit too alike for me. I think they both like to come deep to try and get on the ball.
Yeah.
They're not Esther's not too bad at playing on the shoulder, but they're not the greatest at playing on the shoulder. They're more come deep, link the play, get into the box for a poacher's finish. And I think having two strikers like that in your team, it doesn't allow you enough to sort of, have that rotation between one coming, one going, one drifting wide, a sort of pacey striker and a target man, or whatever combination you want to link together from the last, however 100 years of football. So I think it is more than likely going to be a case of one or the other, especially with, Gay sort of looking to probably be in that 10 role if we're missing McGrath, Clarkson, etc. So yeah, it's much, sort of like I said the other week, I think the problem for Esther is, as a striker, you're going to be judged on goals.
Yeah.
And right now it's 1-0 Kevin. So, it'll be interesting to see where Jimmy goes from here.
Yeah, and I think you're right there about Pape. He's got that versatility about him just now with the number 10 or out on the wings. But being a striker, you're absolutely right. The pressure's on you to score goals. Kevin's gone and done that. But nail on the head with them both liking to come deep, because that was doing my nutting in the second half. The longer the game went 0-0, how deep Kevin Nisbett constantly was coming to try and win the ball up until Shaden Morris came on. This is nothing against Keskin, and the service was kind of lacking on both sides. I think that's more just because both Topi and Shaden like to be that direct player, but maybe Topi's got confidence in his own ability to have a shot on goal. But there was a severe lack of service into the box for Kevin Nisbett to work off of, so he was naturally coming deep to try and involve himself in the game. But anytime Topi or Vinny got out to the width and looked to get the ball into the box, Kevin Nisbett wasn't there. So it was just growing frustration, but thankfully the frustration that maybe some of us in the stands had didn't make its way onto the pitch, which is again is a positive to see.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I mean, I get the drop and deep's part of Kevin's game, and he's good at it, But I think, like you, it's frustrating when everything in the build-up, to him sort of joining the Dons, and when he did join, all his interviews was, if I'm in the box and I've got the ball, I'll score. If the service is there, I'll score. And you're just thinking, be there then, just be, because it's obviously I'm not comparing him to the level of Harry Kane, but it's sort of what happened with Kane at Spurs. Is he kept on coming too deep to try and sort of link the midfield and attack that he was never in the box, and Spurs suffered for it. So no, I like you. I would like to see him just in around that area and getting that service.
Well, he did. He did say on Red TV as well, "Give me a chance and I'll score." And thankfully, when he got his chance at the weekend, he did score. I mean, comparing to Harry Kane's fine, but he's probably got more chance of winning a trophy than Harry Kane this season anyway, the way we've started. Going back, kind of, I know we're kind of jumping about the second half. We'll go back to Vinny's impact and, of course, his wonderful attempt and maybe a bit audacious attempt with that free kick. Spotting Ross Laidlaw kind of to one side of his goal, got that opportunity, desperately unlucky to see that bounce. Clearly not over the line there. Ruby following up with a header. From where I was, couldn't see if it was over the line. I'm not sure which one of them gave it, because the linesman certainly wasn't running back to the halfway line. So I don't know if that one was fully on Ewan Anderson or not. But the goal was awarded, and what seemed to take forever for VAR to decide. And I'm wondering if it's because the first part of that check was for whether the ball was over the line, because who knew Scottish football didn't have goal line technology? I thought they did.
Yeah, I was the exact same as you. It was that moment that I finally discovered we don't have the buzzing watch. So again, not only is it budget VAR, it's budget everything. But no, like I said, I think again it sort of comes back to that sort of not arrogance, but that sort of confidence swagger that we kind of want Vinny to have back on him. Sort of take that on as a man who's not starting every week. He's not in a rich vein of form where he's bag 10 or whatever. It was brilliant to see. And like I said, I'm hoping this is the return to him sort of backing himself a little bit. And as well with Ruby, it didn't really look over the line at first looking on the TV. I don't know what it was like from behind the goal. I think it was Anderson that gave it. Much like you, that the linesman still seemed to just be holding the line. So yeah, I just again, why is it always the refs that we're talking about in Scottish football? But
Yeah, well, you know what, like at County, obviously it's the kind of, if you're at an kind of angle of the posts at a certain level, it's very difficult to see the line kind of clearly. So I had no real kind of view if the ball was definitely over the line or not. I know it looked close from where I was. I have to admit I wasn't entirely convinced when the goal was awarded, but as I said, assuming that we had the goal line technology, I was like, oh well, magic, that's not getting overturned. But the ironic thing is, the length of time it took them to analyze that probably benefited us later on in the game when we saw 9 minutes injury time.
yeah, exactly. I think part of it down to Ross County's own doing. Of the centre half boy taking cramp every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did come back now, but another thing on that is probably being critical here. Ruby probably should have done way better with a header and saved everybody the headache. It seemed like for the tallest man on the pitch to not get over the top of that ball, I don't know how he's managed it. Obviously it was offside that was given in the end, but yeah, probably should have done a bit better and saved us all a headache. But like you say, the added time at the end was I suppose the ball don't lie.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite baffling how he managed to loop the header up rather than knock it straight down, as you said, being the tallest man on the pitch. But unlike the Ross County goal, there was kind of no definite doubt that Ruby was offside. He just mistimed the run ever so slightly. County's kind of opportunities in the second half, for me, felt few and far between, and they weren't kind of getting in behind Aberdeen as much as they did in the first half. Again, Jimmy Tilleen continuing to be positive with the substitutions. Shayden Morris's introduction really kind of pinned Ross County back. Him and Devlin linking up well again. Peter Ambrose's introduction, I think Mira, you could have done just as good a job as Peter, if I'm being brutally honest. I thought Peter Ambrose looked really lost at the weekend. I know it's still early days, and I know we shouldn't be overcritical, but I'm really not convinced.
Yeah, I think it's probably another case of the Papiers here, where I think he just needs that sort of intermediate step, between Budapest and the Dons, where he can just sort of find his feet and find out who he is as a player a little bit.
Yeah.
Because like you say, I don't know if it's the system adjusting to the new league. I know Ruby spoke about that a lot in his interview with Rob McLean, he's discussing Gavin Malloy. So I don't know if it's just that settling in period where he's struggling to focus on the footballing aspect. But yeah, Shayden Morris thought was brilliant when he came on. Again, I feel like every week we're saying he's got his critics, but he seems to be finding his feet a little bit. And I think it was that sort of, like you say, I think Keskinen was good for us. Creative spark in the first half. I just feel he wasn't getting to the byline enough in the same way that Morris was. Every time Morris got the ball, and admittedly it's maybe his only trick, but against tiring legs, just getting Morris on to the byline worked wonders. And I thought he was really, really quite a positive force going forward. And again, like I say every week, a brilliant ball carrier when we needed somebody to kind of dig us out in the midfield. And like you say, it allowed Kevin to get into the box a lot more than sort of hover deep.
Yeah, and as you said, he may be a one-trick pony, but he was getting a lot more success than Topi was at that moment in time. I was maybe a bit surprised Topi came off, and I noticed Jimmy kind of held off for about 5 minutes because he was just kind of almost like got a second wind in the second half. But thankfully, the change came and to a positive effect for Aberdeen. We'll come on to Shayden as well, because that kind of positive impact he had, he produces, and I'm quoting this from Super Aberdeen 1 on Twitter, who, if you don't follow, get involved, because great for us for this show, posts every week the top assist and scorers lists. And that's Shaden now up to 5 assists for the season, one more than Jamie McGrath, who has 4. And kind of interestingly enough, certainly after the game, I didn't realise that Esther Sokler still remains the Dons' top goal scorer with 4, despite kind of this recent Barron run. But for Shaden, really is kind of that player reborn under Jimmy Tilleen. But there was somebody on here in the comments. It's John Kilo said, Shaden Morris is a dynamic 65-minute sub currently, but for Aberdeen, that works. We spoke about potentially Vinny being that impact player. We saw that on Saturday evening as well. Vinny, another example of being that impact player when a defence has already had to endure Topi Keskinen and Habib Gay running at them. The last thing they want to see is 2 wingers that are going to push the ball past them and take them to the byline for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, it's not only just having that pace off your bench, it's having that sort of creative quality as well. Like we said already, Vinny was really direct and good at getting his ball into the box. And, as we've just discussed, Morris, player reborn, who would have thought, on the back of seeing him at right wing back against Motherwell, we'd be this early into the season saying Shaden Morris could quite easily be in, double digits for assists before the end of the year.
Yeah.
Probably not many people.
Yeah, I mean, who thought he would actually still be at the football club?
Well, exactly.
When he got taken off in that first half against Motherwell. I mean, there was people writing Vinny off. Both of them are now having starring roles at this moment in time. I think when you kind of mentioned there the quality, it's probably both players know themselves that that's maybe something they still need to work on, is the quality of ball into the box. But we're seeing positive signs, and hopefully, because again, I know people will say, well, we haven't played any, decent teams yet. Look, October is going to be tough. But come October, hopefully these players like Shaden, who's on 5 assists already, continues to have that confidence and belief in himself, so that when we do play these so-called tougher teams, they have the confidence and belief to go and perform just as well as they have been so far.
Yeah, I think as well. I think a lot of people forget that, Morris is still young. There's still plenty developing in him. And, under a coach like Jimmy, it's probably the best thing for him just now in his career. He's said already that he's learned more under Jimmy than anyone else. So I think it bodes well for hopefully seeing the best of, the £500,000 player we thought we were getting when he first joined.
Yeah. On another VAR decision, of course, that we saw at the weekend was the penalty that somehow Ewan Anderson doesn't award straight away. I don't know if it's because of actually where he was positioned on the pitch, because certainly from where I was relieved that it wasn't given a penalty straight away, but knew it was coming back. A bit of rush of the blood from Nicky Devlin, because he actually moves his hand to the ball. Really, again, can't have any complaints with that decision.
No, I don't think so. Like you say, I think probably more of a shock that it wasn't given there and then. But yeah, no complaints, I think, on that one.
Yeah, absolutely not. But as Paul Donaldson says, how good is it having a goalkeeper who can save penalties? Honestly, if I had come home on Saturday evening and seen Dimi Mitov in my bed, I'd have tucked him in and taken Duke out for a walk. What a man. What an impact having a goalkeeper with a bit of presence. Again, as I've seen in the comments today, it's not just that presence when it comes to saving penalties. He's come out, he's commanding his box. Me and Keith were speaking about it during the game, the fact that he's very quick to come out to the edge of his box every time kind of a players maybe trying to get one-on-one, narrowing the gap, making the striker think about what they need to do. What a difference from what we saw last season.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where the late goal and the scenes that ensued will probably overshadow just how good Mitov was. The penalty save, I don't think has been spoken about enough. It's an absolutely superb save. He doesn't go early. He gets a really strong hand to it to ensure it doesn't go back into the danger zone. It's pretty much right in the corner and hit with power. It's an unbelievably good save. And then, like you say, to come and collect a ball so confidently from the ensuing corner is, I think it's just a testament to how important I think he's going to be for us this season in terms of sort of, like I say, building that confident core at the back and building that foundation for wins.
Yeah, and obviously as well staying on his line because I was watching Sam North's video of the game as well, and he said he wouldn't be surprised would have summed up the game had he been off his line and it been pulled back. But thankfully, Demi as well is getting down low, and I think as well what also has to be admired is how well he does do to get, because the penalty's not at the so-called good height for the keeper. It's down low. So for a man of his height to get down, get a strong hand to it, and as you say, not push it back into the danger zone, get it out and round for the corner as well. It was just absolutely superb. I just wonder as well, there was a couple of other moments in the, I guess, in the build up to the penalty being taken. Gavin Malloy had a wee word with Dimi Mitov as well. Obviously, both he played against Ronan Hale from his time in Ireland. Wondered if there was maybe a bit of advice from Gavin there. And certainly when I was watching the highlights back on Sports Scene, just before Ronan Hale goes to take the penalty, he actually looks at where he ends up placing it. But my confidence also kind of grew when he went up to kind of stamp the ground just before he took it, because it was almost like he was put off slightly. So don't know if there was mind games going on from Mitov, but he won them anyway and gave us, certainly as fans, that gave us the belief that it was maybe going to be our day.
Yeah, I don't know if it's maybe the blinding light of his pearly whites that that maybe knocked him a bit for six, but yeah, no, it's just, again, night and day to last season, just having that sort of confidence in your number one, where you just know that he's in control of what's going on in his box, which is exactly what you're needing your keeper to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, the late scenes that follow probably overshadows the defensive performance that we put in. But I guess that's the joys of being a goalkeeper. Rarely do your good moments get highlighted. It's always the bad moments. But it's great to give the defense somebody that they can believe in. But also for us as fans, have somebody that we can believe in that's going to keep clean sheets. And I did kind of enjoy his kind of press conference. I think it was before the Kilmarnock game. Says he always goes out knowing that if he can get a clean sheet, he's earned his team at least a point. So his aim is always to have a clean sheet, because, and it's just such a cliche, because if you keep a clean sheet, you don't lose games. So yeah, very interesting kind of thought process, and thankfully one that's worked for us. And it did prove to be a key moment because, as we've discussed, it produced late scenes. Nicky Devlin bursting run, and probably one thing Ewan Anderson did do right was allow the advantage to be played before Shayden Morris then delivering the ball into the box. Shayden's been credited with the assist. Do you think Nicky Devlin's maybe trying to claim one as well, with a little cheeky flick through to Kevin Nisbett, who, as we said, wanted a chance to score a goal, and probably his first chance, and he finishes it very well into that bottom corner.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wanting to put it down to a really clever dummy from Nicky Devlin. Is how I'm wanting to view it. But no, like you say, I think it's a trait of Devlin's, just his ability to run at the level he runs at for the full 90 is, I think, testament to the sort of type of guy that he is. But yeah, like you say, Nisbett's finish, at that point of the game, basically really his first clear sniff at goal, to be that composed and just slot it back across the goalkeeper. And then, yeah, I'm very envious of those scenes behind the goal, because my God, did it look beautiful.
Oh, it felt beautiful, honestly. That only a football fan will know what that feeling is like. I'm not speaking about the running on the pitch or anything like that, but that feeling when the ball hits the net in the 90th minute, when the game's maybe not been the best game ever, but just that feeling if you could bottle it up and sell it, you'd make a fortune. David McLennan probably summing it all up by saying what he loved about the game was that we never stopped trying to win it. Before, I'm guessing, meaning under previous management, we might have settled for a point. And Paul Donaldson as well, not the best performance for the whole 90 minutes. We didn't stop right until the final whistle. That felt like a big 3 points. And I think as well, that also played into the emotions and the scenes that we saw at full time. We knew that Saturday was that opportunity to go top of the league. It was to go 12 points out of 12. We'd had our backs against the wall in the sense of the penalty awarded, the goal disallowed. We hadn't been playing at our best, as Paul says, but to not be at your best and to win ugly, I guess. I don't say as a sign of champions, because that'd be for Callum to say, but is a sign of a team that knows how to win games, has that bit of belief, and gives us as fans positivity that we could be onto something for this season.
Yeah, and certain people in Glasgow who have no sense of humour are sort of criticising the scenes. They're criticising, a lot of the tongue-in-cheek that, the likes of ourselves or the sort of chants that were coming out of Dingwall of us sort of saying, we're going for the treble, we're doing this, that, and the next thing. I don't quite think they understand that compared to last season, this is like night and day, like I keep on saying. And as well, we didn't know how results were going to go on Sunday. But, even then on the back of Sunday, 5 points clear of Rangers, 10 points clear of Hibs, 11 points clear of Hearts. Okay, it's 4 games into the season, but we're already setting that sort of footing of forcing teams to try and, sort of amount this huge points deficit that they're already at. And it's great, it's something that really we should be relishing. And like we said in the sort of preview of the Ross County game, just as a mental aspect for the players to sort of show them, look, what you're doing is paying off. It's brilliant. Yeah,
and I think as well it also highlights, the fact that it was, Jimmy was saying it's going to be a tough game. As I said, Andy Skinner spoke about Ross County's home record. We went up there and won. It's just given everybody that extra bit of belief. And as you've already highlighted, the fact we're already double digits ahead of both Edinburgh clubs as well. We also now have the luxury, after seeing the European draw, knowing that home game against Hearts at the start of October is after they've faced a trip to Azerbaijan to play Dinamo Minsk, who have had their games moved for, of course, the political situation in that region. And as we've seen ourselves, it's not always easy to pick yourself up after a long European trip on a Thursday night, especially when you're halfway to Asia at that point.
Yeah, and especially as well on the back of the form they're currently in, For our sake, I'm hoping Stephen Naismith gets at least another 2 months in the job. But, it might not be the case. But, yeah, just the situation they're in, being in a poor run of form, and then, like you say, that long travel, it all suits us well on top of the mental aspect of, already being 11 points clear of them. So, like Callum had put in our group chat, there's a real chance that come October, we're 20 points clear of Hearts. And, if you were looking at this Aberdeen team under the likes of Warnock and Robson last season, you'd be going, nah, there's no chance that Aberdeen are, at least in contention 4 games in of a top 3. So, yeah, it's night and day, and I'm absolutely here for the bandwagon. I'm here for Jimmy's Rapid Reds, and Cormac's off Twitter now, but he best be back on to plan the bus route in May.
Yeah, I know. That's I'm very disappointed to see the end of Davy Cormac on Twitter, and had he probably announced that on Sunday night before I'd sorted the title for this episode, the title might have just been Dave Cormac. So when he searches his own name again, this episode would have popped up for him to enjoy.
Oh God, my hero. I'm gonna miss those random transfer scoops from Dave himself.
Yeah. Right, before we go on to transfers, as you've just said, our roving reporters highlighted the fact that it's 1-0 to Aberdeen. Shayden Morris continuing his form by grabbing the goal. He also pointed out as well that Jimmy McGarry had a slight hamstring scare in that opening first 45. I know that game's just coming up to half-time, but he has continued on, hopefully positive that he's continuing on, because there's no luck for him if he does suffer another hamstring injury. Do feel a bit sorry for him.
Was young Jim McGarry just born without hamstrings? I feel like, every week he's getting something wrong with him.
It feels like that. Right, on to the transfer window. The Dons signalling the ending of their dealing very early and giving everybody the opportunity to have a nice early Friday night by releasing a statement around about 6 o'clock on Friday to say that there would be no further business conducted, but that Jayden Richardson had left the club after the two parties mutually agreed the termination of his contract. Ashbrook House saying, I think the transfer window is strong, but worry most about a striker. Doesn't feel like Ambrose, Pape or Sokler are good enough. Obviously that comment coming in kind of quite early on in the show before we've kind of discussed maybe Pape's versatility right now. Esther, we have seen in glimpses what he can do, and he's obviously just going through a little bit of a tough time. Personally agree with the comments on Ambrose at this present moment in time. Overall, what was your kind of thoughts on the statement and the transfer window as a whole, Phil?
Yeah, I think, the greedy side of me wanted more. I always want more transfers. But, the rational side and sort of how we've conducted our business so far, I wasn't really expecting much unless there was this sort of bumper deal that would work for us. That seems to have been quite a common trend of our dealings, is deals have to work for us, and I think that's a very sensible stand to take, like we spoke about last time. The fact that clubs know we have money on the back of the Miovski deal, sort of staying strong and not basically being bent over, is good to see. I feel a little bit sorry for Jayden, not surprised, but sorry, 'cause it did kind of feel like, maybe other than Duke, he's the only player that's not really been allowed to clear his slate, as Jimmy put it. But
Duke needs to be here to clear his slate, though.
Exactly. But yeah, I kind of felt a bit sorry for him that it seemed like he didn't get the opportunity before he went, but not surprised in the slightest. I think we all kind of expected him to go, maybe not, in a sort of contract termination, but I think we all expected him not to be with us by the end of the window.
I guess as well, it could also be the fact that we were looking to offload him, maybe mutually looking for that offloading, and unfortunately no team took him, and now giving him the opportunity to go. I guess as Kaiser says as well, when we look at the squad right now, Clarkson and Paul Var-Y still to come back. It's a pretty strong squad. He hopes that Nisbett can go on to take Miovski's role, and that would be good.
And aside as well, we've still got Palaversa to actually see in action as well, which, again, he's becoming like a mystery man for me. I keep on forgetting he exists because we've not really seen him.
Yeah, and I saw Kaiser actually make a comment as well that he maybe thought we would have seen him come on at the weekend. Unfortunately, that wasn't to be the case, but maybe the cup game against Spartans provides an opportunity to play Palaversa. Who knows? I know he's actually playing tonight, having seen some of the comments coming in from Sam on that as well. On Ambrose as well, and I think this is quite relevant, and I think I would do well to remember this myself and probably other fans as well. Musical Box saying Ambrose is young and believe he was signed for the future more than for this season, possibly in the same shape that Gavin Malloy was also signed as a project. Unlike Peter, Gavin's obviously got thrusted into more first team football and is kind of fitted in like a glove. Peter Ambrose still kind of struggling to find his feet, maybe also struggling to find his real position, because a couple of times we've seen him punted out to the wing rather than playing through as a striker.
Yeah, I think it's, again, like I think it's a tough one for Peter. I think it is just a case of, he's moved here, adjusting to a new league, adjusting to a new country. And I do think that maybe having a loan just to, help him, like I say, he's still a young lad, just in a sort of, I guess, spiritual, hippie, university grad way, find himself a little bit, would probably do him the world of good.
Yeah, I think overall, though, we have to be happy with the window. the fact that we only got one loan signing in this window speaks volumes from where we've been previously. It also speaks of maybe the way Jimmy wants to work. I also think it goes into the fact he wants to have people fully committed to being at Aberdeen, not just here to better themselves and then leave and weaken us, I guess. I also think it plays into the fact that it is a project. Like, we have to then stay committed to the manager as well, and getting in the right player as well, not just getting in a player for the sake of it. Yes, we're maybe light in other areas, as we've discussed with some of the comments that have come in so far. The striking area, the wingers, the right back situation was, I know, very much dominated the last episode. Obviously now Jaden departing as well likely leaves Jack Milne as the cover in that area as well. But we look at the additions of Dimitar Mitov, upgrade, Nielsen, upgrade, and almost then putting on to Shinnie, upgrading him from what we've seen last season. There's additions to this squad that we have to be pleased about, and we'll see then what January brings.
Yeah, like you said, I think the key thing that you've really hit on there is that everyone's buying in, and I think that is the key to the success of both the new players that have came in, the players that have returned, and the players that maybe looked sort of under where they should be. Maybe in the case of Shinnie last season.
Mm-hmm.
So much like Davey, I'm trusting the process. Where and I'm confident that we should hopefully have enough there, barring any disastrous injury spells, to sort of see us to January, where the market might be in a completely different place and the right players are available for the right price.
Yeah, Ewan Grant's calling it one of the strongest transfer windows we've had in a long time, and we spent a good few mil doing it. Probably actually don't really think we have spent a lot as well. We've earned more money than we've probably put out as well, which is always a positive to see. David McLennan asking, honestly, what happens to Duke now the window's closed? Honestly, who knows? It's probably the best answer because none of us know. And yeah, Musical Box saying he's placed himself in limbo. He's contracted, so can't play for any club other than us, and he wouldn't get a game even if he returned to us. It would be interesting to see if he did return, whether or not he got a game. Obviously, he'll be severely unfit, but I can't help but feel the way the situation's been handled. I still stand by the fact that a lot of this is going to be coming down to poor advice on top of potentially the player as well. It's going to affect any future move as well, because what club is going to want to sign a player or deal with an agent with that sort of attitude as well. But focusing on who we do have and who we have committed to the club, which is more important at this moment in time now, is, I think you're right, Phil. We'll see those players buying into the philosophy. The fans are continuing to buy into it. Naturally, that obviously helps by the fact that we're winning games. I do think, though, as well, October will be that real test of where this squad is and its capabilities as well. I don't think any of us are under the illusion that it's been a tough start to the season. We spoke about you can only beat what is in front of you. We've achieved that. Let's see how they cope when the pressures of the games, that cup quarter final, it doesn't matter who the opposition is. It's still a big pressure game to get back to Hampden. How they deal with that, and then how they deal with that run of games in October. I still maintain, though, the fact that 3 of those big games in October are at Tawdry are going to be a huge bonus. And I'm sure we've already seen an increase in crowds, be big crowds for those games as well, and real opportunities for us as fans and them as players to see what this season has in store.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, October's the big one, and we all know we're having a laugh. Certain people are maybe taking our tongue in cheek a bit serious, but by the end of October, it'll be interesting to see whether we're actually going to be getting taken serious or not. Even amongst our own support, if we come out at the end of October and we're still there or thereabouts, I think it'll be interesting in the sort of knock on it has to other teams in the league, and sort of how their confidence might be affected by that. But no, like you say, I think the the group we've got just now, the backing of the crowds, again, our away support's been fabulous again this season, and I think that's only going to increase with how we're performing at the moment. So I think it's an exciting time to be a Dons fan. I think it is a really exciting time, and I think it's hopefully, and I'm going to say with quiet confidence, going to get better.
Yeah, this is where we need Callum, who would just come out and tell everybody it's going to get better, and then September would end up going terribly wrong. At least we approach it with a bit more cautious optimism. But look, as you said, it's a great time to be a Dons fan, and I think as well everyone is enjoying it, knowing that it may not last, but it's much better than what we've been enduring last season, and that's where we're seeing all this raw emotion coming from as well. It's about time we have a bit of pride and belief back in ourselves. We are a proud bunch as Aberdonians, and we're proud of our football club, and we'll always support it no matter what. And it's just great to see us back up and doing well as well after what was a really tough season last season. But no, honestly, I just get excited now. It's so much better doing these podcasts, whether it's live, whether it's pre-recorded, after we've won games. It really is.
Yeah, like I say, how many? I think probably the buzzword from the two of us on the show last season was apathy, and by God, does that feel a million miles away right now? Like you say, it's so exciting to just be amongst this club just now, and that is something that last season I would not have expected in the slightest.
Absolutely, yeah. Even for me, like going to away games was a thought. Dundee away now. I can't wait for that to come around as well, the end of September. But we'll leave that on that positive, get everyone excited, because I know some of you don't enjoy the international break too much. So I'm sure everyone will be chomping at the bit when we get back. We will be back next week, rounding up the international break, because of course there are Dons players away, so let's keep our fingers crossed that everyone comes back fit and raring to go for that Motherwell game. So we'll round up the international break and look ahead to the Motherwell game as well. If you are looking as well for some Dons content over the international break, why not look at the Fans Project interview that I did with Andy Forbes, the chairman of the Fans Project, after you've done with this episode. The Fans Project themselves are also currently running a silent auction to help raise funds for the Neil Simpson display for the game in October. That silent auction is for 3 people to attend hospitality in the Fraser Suite for the game against Motherwell as well. That is on their Twitter page. We've given it a retweet, so if you follow us at RTG_podcast, you'll see the post there with all the information as well. So all that's left for me to say is until next time, we'll see you then.